Okay, 3.5, dividing rational numbers. So multiplying and dividing, very, very similar. Just like multiplying regular numbers, when we multiply a negative times a negative, what's the answer there? Who remembers from last lesson? Yeah, the answer is a positive value. If we multiply a positive times a positive, what's the result? It's a, what kind of, positive or negative? It's positive. Yeah, remember that if you multiply the same signs, then the answer is always positive. If you multiply different signs, and that's only considering two things. If you have three things to multiply or divide, we'll talk about that later. But you take first two at a time, right? So same sign, positive, different sign, the answer is negative. Those rules apply also to dividing. So when you divide two negative numbers, the result will be positive. So let's just jot down here, maybe I'll just put this right here on the notes. Dividing rules for positive, negative is, are same as multiplying. So that's a good note for you to jot down somewhere in your notes as well, just as a reminder. Dividing rules for positive, negative, I'll maybe put a little slash there, are the same as multiplying. Okay? Maybe make that special color like purple. I don't know. That looks good. All right. So negative 15 divided by negative 5. We'll zoom in on this first example here. Negative 15 divided by negative 5. What's the result going to be? Is it going to be positive or negative, do you think? Yeah, it's going to be positive, something. Good. And then what we do is we simply take the first number divided by the second number, and that's pretty easy. 15 divided by 5 is? 3. Right. If you don't like dividing, think about it as multiplying, right? Like 15 divided by 5 equals something. Something multiplied by 5 equals 15. Think about it that way. So forward, is multiplying, reverse is dividing. Or if forward is dividing, then the reverse is multiplying. Okay? So watch this. This equals positive 3. So if you don't like dividing, think about what number times negative 5 equals negative 15. Think about it as multiplying in the reverse. That works too. Okay? All right, B, let's skip over to B here. So negative 18 divided by positive 9, that answer is going to be what? Is it going to be positive or negative? Negative. Positive, yes. Negative. Negative is correct. 18 divided by 9 is 2, right? I know, it's early. 18 divided by 9 is 2. So this is going to be negative 2. You good? Again, if you don't like that, what number times 9 gives us negative 18? That's a little bit weird to think of it this way, going up and down, but you could also change that into a multiplication. So negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. All right. Dividing decimals. Dividing decimals, again, rules for signs are the same. Rules for dividing are the same. Maybe it's been a long time since you've hand divided. This is a divided sign. You put the number that's underneath here inside the divided sign here. Now, what about positive and negative? I would suggest you just use the actual numbers themselves, just like you used to do in elementary school. We know that the answer is going to be negative here because we have opposite signs. So I would just put a negative outside here. You can put the negative here if you want. That's totally fine. But anyways, so 3 into 5 goes how many times? Or 5 divided by 3 is how many whole times? 1. Okay, so 1 times 3 is 3. What do we add or subtract here? Yeah, subtract. Okay, so that's a 2. Now I bring down the 1, correct? Good, to make this a 1. And this decimal point, is it okay if I just put this right up here right now? Or is that okay if I just keep those in column there? No? Not okay, you don't think? Because it might move. Okay, let's just leave that aside then if you don't like that. Let's just come back to it. So 3 times what is 21? Or 21 divided by 3 is 7. Okay. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract gives us a 0. So we can stop. If we get a 0, we can stop. Now there's 1 decimal place involved here. So the answer should go back 1 decimal place. So it works out that we can put that decimal right there. Okay. That's no problem. So the answer is negative 1.7. You can check that on your calculator. I would encourage that. if you're unsure. And yeah, you need to know how to do this kind of by hand like you used to be able to do this, so practice it once in a while. So negative 5.1 divided by 3 is negative 1.7. Look at that, we got it. All right. Negative 7.5 divided by negative 5. So let me just show you maybe just another way to do this one. So the result is going to be positive because we have two negatives being divided. Now, 7.5 over 5 is the same as this, 75 over 50. You see that? I just multiplied the top and the bottom by 10. Now, I don't know if this helps you or not, but seeing decimals in fractions is not normal, right? It's easier to see whole numbers. So can we now reduce this fraction? Because you don't have to jump on your calculator right away. You can simply reduce the fraction. Because this divided by sign, this sign right here in a fraction means divided by. That's what it means. So it might be easier just to simplify the fraction that represents the division. Okay? Because notice on your calculator, when you have to do like 2/3, okay? 2/3. If you do that on your calculator, that looks like 2/3, but notice I hit the divided by button to get that symbol. And if I wanted that in a decimal, I would use the divided by sign. And the decimal form of 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. So we can take this fraction, simplify it, and that's the same as dividing. I'll show you how to do this as a fraction, and then we can just jump on our calculator and show it as a decimal too if we want. But 75 divided by 50, well, I can divide both sides, or top and bottom, by 25, looks like. And that's going to be positive 3 over 2. You should know that that is 1.5 as a decimal, or 1.5, right? So on your calculator, you get positive 1.5 if you went straight from the decimals in the question there. So let's just check that out. Negative 7.5 divided by negative 5 is, look at that, positive 1.5. Any questions so far about any of these examples we've done? Anybody? Pretty easy? Okay. All right. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit here. So I know I'm going slow at first here to make sure I don't leave anybody behind. So if I need to pick it up, I think I will. Just a little bit. So here's another example. Look at this decimals now. Instead of just jumping on your calculator, okay, let's think of it, let's think this through. This divided by sign is the same as writing like a fraction. Divided by, negative 10.5 divided by 0.25. Now, we're simply looking for how many times does 0.25 go into 10.5. You could think about this as money. It's always nice to think about this as quarters, right? So there's 4 quarters in a dollar, just like there's 4 0.25s in one. So there's 4 quarters in a dollar, and we have $10.50 here. That's the same thing. That's interesting, isn't it? So we have 4 quarters per dollar, so that's going to be 4 times 10, right, is going to be 40. And then how many quarters make up 50 cents? 2. So it looks like it could be 42, right? You think that through your head. And the answer is, of course, going to be negative because we have opposite signs. So let's just check that out. I don't like the decimals. Let's get rid of the decimals. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 100 to get rid of both decimals. And I don't know if this makes any more sense to you or you like this any better, but you could certainly divide both of these by 25, and we should get 42. Let's just check that out. Negative 10.5, oops, divided by 0.25. How many quarters are in $10.40? There you go, 42. All right, try these on your own. Please try them without a calculator here first, and then you can check your answers with the calculator. You should have 4 of these, so take a few minutes and try each of these questions on your own. And I'll show you my solutions in a few minutes. All right, so here's the answers to those 4 questions. Long division, again, make sure you know how to do long division. You should get a positive 3.4 here. For number 2, With long division as well, you get a negative 4.21. 3, it was mentioned, can we just simplify that fraction? Sure. Just if you can do it without your calculator. So divide by 2 first, that's easy maybe, to get 69 from 138 there. And then divide by 3, and you get negative 23 as your final answer. This one over here, I also did the fraction sort of method, multiplied both numbers by 100 to completely get rid of the decimals. And then this simplifies really easy to a fraction, negative 5 over 6. You might not know that as a decimal. You might need your calculator for that, but either one of these is okay. Oh, and sorry, one of my negatives disappeared. Hey, that's a positive, right? Because we have a negative, oh, look, it disappeared again. We have a negative divided by a negative, so our answer is positive. All right. Okay, dividing fractions. This is the most important part because this is the trickiest part, I would say. Dividing fractions, there's a little rule to help you divide fractions. It's similar to multiplying fractions, but this little rule helps us to get this straightened out. So when dividing by fractions, what we do is we keep the first fraction the same, so we don't change this one. But if we're dividing by another fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. So this is flip and multiply. That's what I always say, flip and multiply. And I'm not like being crass or being mad, like flip and multiply. I'm not like mad. I'm saying you flip the second, you get it? You flip the second fraction and then you treat it as multiplication. Okay? Now, that's straight to the shortcut. Okay, that's straight to the shortcut. How can I explain this to you that might make sense to you? If you take a regular number like this, like 10 divided by 2, okay, and if you write it like this, 10 over 2, that's the same thing, right? Well, if you were to treat each of these as fractions, 10 over 1 divided by 2 over 1, you would get the answer of 5 if you focused on this fraction that you're dividing by. If you change this to multiplication and wrote 10 over 1 times 1 over 2, you see that becomes the same thing. So 10 over 2 is 5. Now you wouldn't do that with a simple question like this, but that helps us to understand that process, if it works for something simple, it's probably going to work for other situations too. Okay? Girls? Yeah. Pay attention up here, please. Thank you. So what we do is we flip and multiply. Flip the second fraction, and students often get confused and flip both fractions. Can't do that. Don't flip the first fraction, just leave that one alone. You always flip the second one that you're multiplying. So these two can change. You change this to a multiply, and then these two trade spots, okay? So negative 2/5 divided by 3/10 is the same as negative 2/5 times 10 over 3. So there's the flip, okay? Let's check this out on a calculator, okay? So you don't have to just watch this for a second. So I'm going to try this one. I'm going to try negative 2. Actually, let's put some brackets on there. Negative 2 divided by 5. All right. So negative 2/5 as a fraction divided by, we'll do divided by 3/10. Okay, so that's what that fraction is. Here's the decimal, negative 1.33. Negative 4/3 is negative 1.33 repeating. That's the same thing. Now let's check out the flip and multiply. So negative 2 divided by 5 times, and let's do 10 over 3. 10 over 3. Okay, so there's flip and multiply, and we get the exact same number. All right. Any questions? All right, let's burn through some examples here. Should be pretty straightforward. The other thing we want to remember is once we write it in multiplication, you got to remember the canceling or the dividing out too. So this turns into 3/4 times, do I drop the negative there, do you think? What do I do with the negative? Drop it or leave it? Yeah, when you take the reciprocal of something, you don't change the negative sign at all. So yeah, you can leave it. -8/9. So multiply by the reciprocal. Now here, be a good idea to practice what we learned the other day and simplify fractions on the top and the bottom. So 3/9 becomes 1/3. 8/4 becomes 2/1. And so what we have here is we have 1 times -2 on top. You see there's the 1, there's the -2. And we have 1 times 3 on the bottom. So that's -2/3. Where the negative is doesn't matter. If it's on the side or on the top, doesn't matter. All right. Okay. B. I'll do one more example with you, and then I'll get you to do the rest on your own. So B says 1 1/4 divided by -3. So two things have to happen here. We have to change our fractions into improper fractions if it's mixed. So this is going to be 5/4. And this fraction here, or this number here, should be written as a fraction as well. Okay, so treat that as a fraction as well. Then you can flip and multiply. So 5/4 times, and where the negative is, it doesn't matter. I'll put it on the bottom this time to stay with 3 there. Okay, before I multiply straight across, I want to look to see if there's any simplification I can do. Doesn't look like 5 and 3 can simplify, or 1 and 4 can simplify. So now I just multiply straight across, and I get 5/-12. And again, that negative could be on the top, on the side, or on the bottom. Questions? Yep.
So how do you, how do you know that, which one do you know that you cannot flip over?
Which one do you flip? Second one. Always the second one.
Okay.
So if you have 3 questions,
Yeah, if you have 3 numbers in a row that you're multiplying or dividing, you just do the first 2 as separate, and then get that result, and then multiply or divide by the third one. Yeah, so just do the first 2 at a time always, if it's a string of multiplications or divisions. Yeah. Okay, so do C and D on your own, and see what you can come up with. Okay, so here's the answer for C and D. Anybody have any questions there? Flip the second one, multiply. Before you multiply, check to see if you can simplify the any top number with any bottom number. And in both cases we can. So C should be -20, D should be +7/18. Okay, got it? All right. Any questions at all before you get your textbook assignment?